beloved by World War II soldiers, shark smugglers, and Florida men alike. Here are 50 insane facts about meth. And just a warning, some of this is gonna get dark. Fact 50. As the saying goes, life imitates art, and when it comes to Breaking Bad, there have been quite a few real-life Walter Whites. One of them was literal, a man named, you guessed it, Walter White, topped the 2016 Most Wanted list in Tuscaloosa, Alabama for the manufacture and selling of meth. He wasn't a teacher, but don't worry, there have been teachers who followed the fictional Mr. White's footsteps too. In 2011, a 74-year-old math professor from Boston University was charged with running a meth lab. Then in 2012, William Duncan, a junior high chemistry teacher in Cass County, Texas, was accused of cooking and selling meth. He was caught after attempting to sell his product to undercover cops in the parking lot of the school where he taught. Walter White would never. Fact 49. Ever wondered what the iconic blue crystals featured in Breaking Bad were made of? In a 2014 radio interview, Walter White himself revealed the secret. According to Bryan Cranston, it was cotton candy-flavored rock candy, or in his words, vile-tasting pieces of sugar. He also revealed that co-star Aaron Paul, who played Jesse, was getting sugar high on their supply. By that we mean he was eating the candy. Please don't sue us, Aaron. Speaking of Breaking Bad's baby blue meth, though, fact 48. Was there any truth to the idea of blue-tinged drugs, or was that just Hollywood magic? According to USA Today, there was a real meth cook who tinted his product with blue chalk, referring to the dyed version as Smurf dope. Classy. But the color wasn't the only part of Breaking Bad's candy meth that was weirdly accurate. Fact 47. According to DEA spokesman Steve Robertson, there have been rare reports of flavored meth popping up in California, Nevada, Washington, Idaho, Texas, New Mexico, Missouri, and Minnesota. Identified flavors include strawberry, chocolate, and cola, not to be confused with Coke. Yummy! Fact 46. You probably don't associate meth with a case of the sniffles, but one of the most effective ingredients used to treat the common cold has historically been used to manufacture meth. Pseudoephedrine, used as a decongestant and included in medications like Sudafed, was once available over the counter. However, in 2006 it was restricted in the United States after it became known as the ingredient of choice for methamphetamine home cooks. So now it's a whole lot harder to treat cold and flu symptoms without drowsiness. Thanks a lot, meth. Fact 45. Like many of the most infamous illegal drugs, there was a time when meth was used in a medical setting, and it was potentially given to some pretty famous patients. Dr. Max Jacobson, a doctor to the stars in the 60s and 70s, earned the nickname Dr. Feelgood with many of his high-profile patients. His treatments just so happened to include amphetamines and methamphetamines from time to time. Who was he injecting these mysterious drug cocktails, which may or may not have included meth, into? Well, just a few people you might have heard of, like Ingrid Bergman, Elizabeth Taylor, Nelson Rockefeller, and John F. Kennedy himself. That's right, Jacobson was injecting amphetamines into the President of the United States for his back pain. His unusual and unethical methods, emphasis on the meth, were exposed by the New York Times in 1972, and Jacobson lost his medical license in 1975, which, makes sense. His ethical conduct was pretty methed up. Fact 44. Speaking of the dentist, meth use can spell serious trouble for anyone that needs to be put under for surgery, dental or otherwise. Not only does meth interact with anesthesia, but regular use of stimulants increases the risk of heart failure during surgery. For a long time, meth users, surgeons may need to perform an ultrasound of the heart beforehand to evaluate how it's functioning. So if your surgeon asks about recreational drug use, they're probably not trying to be a narc, they're trying to make sure you don't die on the table. Fact 43. One of the most infamous side effects of meth is meth mouth, or extreme tooth decay. But what about meth causes this? First, meth use reduces saliva production. Saliva is a barrier against acid wear on the tooth enamel. If saliva production is reduced, the teeth develop more cavities as the enamel is worn away. Meth users will often clench or grind their teeth, causing them to break. And add in the fact that many meth users consume high-sugar beverages to combat their dry mouth, the decreased blood to oral tissues that results from methamphetamines, lesions in the gums and cheeks caused by smoking meth, and top it all off with the likelihood that prolonged meth users are less likely to notice oral pain or seek medical attention, and you're looking at a dentist's nightmare. Fact 42. Meth is often associated with rural America today, but it was actually first invented in Japan. chemist Nagai Nagiyoshi synthesized methamphetamine from ephedrine in 1893. Later, Akira Ogata synthesized it in a crystalline form in 1919. The process by which he synthesized meth in this form involved a mixture of red phosphorus, iodine, and ephedrine, and it's a process still used by some meth manufacturers today. Nice to know that humble, small-town meth cooks are keeping traditions alive. Fact 41. So, what's the deal with ephedrine? Ephedrine is a chemical derived from ephedra, an evergreen shrub native to China and India. It's been used in traditional Chinese medicine for over 5,000 years to treat asthma, bronchitis, and symptoms of cold and flu, such as congestion, chills, cough, and fever. It can be distilled into a chemical form known as ephedrine, or synthetic versions of the chemical like pseudoephedrine. That's right, we're back to Sudafed. Because ephedrine can be used to make meth, pseudoephedrine can be used for the same thing. Ephedra was sold commercially in supplements for weight loss, energy, and athletic performance until it was banned in 2004. Fact 40. So remember how ephedra was used to treat asthma? Well, in 1932, the American pharmaceutical industry had the same idea about amphetamine. Big pharma company SmithKline & French released Benzedrine, an amphetamine inhaler marketed for the treatment of asthma and nasal congestion. It was available to customers without a prescription, and people quickly caught on to its, well, let's just say recreational possibilities. In order to prevent abuse of the inhalers, the company added hot pepper extract to Benzedrine, hoping the sting of capsaicin would stop people from huffing the fumes when it wasn't necessary. It's uncertain how effective this deterrent was, but the company eventually phased out the use of amphetamine in its inhalers. Asthmatics who no longer had to inhale hot pepper extract probably rejoiced. Fact 39. At this point, the word meth is starting to sound like a nonsense word, so let's talk about some other nicknames for it. According to official DEA documentation, some of the confirmed street terms for meth include biker's coffee, chalk, Christie, crystal, crank, glass, ice, popsicle, rocket fuel, speed, witch's teeth, devil's dandruff, and zip. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Pun intended. Actually, we intend all of our puns. It's just a nice little way of making you suffer. Moving on. Fact 38. Meth goes by a lot of different names, and it also comes in a variety of forms. There's crystal meth, of course, which we've already covered. Crystal meth is the most potent form of the drug and is generally smoked or injected by drug users. It also comes in a powder form known as speed, which can be mixed with other substances and snorted. Then there's base, which is a more potent and pure form than powder and is a damp or oily substance with a white, yellow, or brown color. This is usually injected or swallowed by meth users. None of those sound all that appealing to us. Fact 37. There's another form of meth we haven't covered yet, prescription meth. That's right, methamphetamine is available in prescription form. Okay, it's not exactly true. It's a form of the drug known as methamphetamine hydrochloride, also known as Desoxin. This drug is a controlled substance that is occasionally prescribed for the treatment of ADHD. Amphetamines can be very useful in the treatment of ADHD, including Adderall and Ritalin. It's important to note that these drugs don't have the same effects when used to treat this specific medical condition as they do when taken recreationally by those who don't need them. As the saying goes, the dose makes the poison, and there is an ocean of difference between taken as directed Ritalin and crystal meth. That was heavy, so how about some music to take our minds off it? Fact 36. Hey, you know that song Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind? Yeah, you do, even if you don't realize it. Maybe you heard it on the radio or while in a dressing room in a department store somewhere. The song was massively popular on release and continues to be used in ads, movies, and TV shows, and it gets a lot of radio play. It's a pretty cheerful song if you don't focus on the lyrics so much. If you do, you might realize it's actually about meth. You might notice the line, "The sky was gold, it was rose, I was taking sips of it through my nose, and I wish that I could get back there, someplace back there, smiling in the pictures you would take. Doing crystal meth will lift you up until you break." Pretty heavy material for a song once covered by Alvin and the Chipmunks. Fact 35. Speaking of artists writing about meth use, Jack Kerouac famously wrote On the Road, but he also was on amphetamines. While he wasn't using meth per se, he was very fond of Benzedrine and would write to other famed beat poet Allen Ginsberg, "Benny has made me see a lot." By the way, On the Road was written in only 3 weeks with no paragraph breaks on one giant scroll made out of taped together sheets of paper. But that's probably not related. Fact 34. It's been a minute since we talked about Breaking Bad. Let's fix that. The creators of the show reached out to the Drug Enforcement Administration during the process of production, and the DEA chemists came on board to teach Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston how to make crystal meth. Which brings us to our next fact. Fact 33. The science is pretty accurate on Breaking Bad, but that doesn't mean it's a step-by-step instruction manual for a do-it-yourself meth lab. For example, real meth of the purity discussed on the show would not actually be blue, but colorless. The show used a science consultant, Dr. Donna Nelson, a chemistry professor at the University of Oklahoma, to advise on the show's portrayal of meth cooking, particularly in the P2P process. The portrayal is largely accurate, but some details were left out to avoid accidentally inspiring any enterprising copycats. Fact 32. Wait a second, what's the P2P process? We already talked about the process of crystallizing ephedrine and pseudoephedrine using phosphorus and iodine, but as there have been more crackdowns on ephedrine and its synthetic forms, the P2P process has increased in popularity among meth manufacturers. The P2P process is named after phenyl-2-propanone, a precursor chemical to pseudoephedrine, and it also involves aluminum, methylamine, and mercuric chloride. Using this precursor chemical allows meth cooks to get around restrictions on pseudoephedrine while still generating product, though the product is considerably lower quality. Fact 31. Bet you didn't know how big of a role meth played in World War II. German pharmaceutical company Temmler released a new exciting drug in 1938 called Pervitin. It was a miracle drug that could make people more alert, less depressed, and more productive. Oh yeah, and it was a pill version of methamphetamine. A military doctor named Otto Ranke discovered the possibilities of this magic little pill, and soon it was the go-to stimulant for Nazi Germany. In 1 month in 1940, the German military went through 35 million meth tablets. What better way to stay up for days at a time and march for miles without rest than to just be absolutely cranked out of your mind on meth? The German soldiers' new best friend fueled them through the Blitzkrieg invasion of France, among other missions. It reached a point where they were so desperate to keep the sweet stimulants flowing that soldiers were writing letters to their families from the front and asking them to send not photos, not letters, but more Pervitin. It seemed like this drug was going to win Germany the war. Well, we all know how that worked out. Hey, speaking of failures, fact 30. Adolf Hitler, what a loser! He was always known for having boundless energy for long war strategy meetings and loud speeches about all the things he hated. Where did he get all that energy? Many historians say it was a cocktail of various drugs, including cocaine and crystal meth. I guess it's pretty exhausting being one of history's greatest monsters. He needed some chemical assistance. Fact 29. It should be noted that it wasn't just the German military using performance-enhancing drugs during World War II. American soldiers used Benzedrine as their combat stimulant of choice, taking it to keep themselves awake and alert and to stave off battle fatigue. Meanwhile, the British soldiers consumed Dexedrine for the same purpose. So everybody was on some kind of amphetamine, and they were all shooting at each other. The art of war. Fact 28. Japanese kamikaze pilots also used methamphetamine during World War II, taking large doses via injection before their missions. They were also given pills made from methamphetamine mixed with green tea powder and then stamped with the crest of the emperor. These were known as storming tablets. After the war ended, many soldiers returned home with meth habits, and the drug gained momentum in the streets of Japan. Isn't war just awesome for everyone involved? Fact 27. Humanity hasn't just used meth as a weapon of war, we've also used it for the sake of vanity. Methamphetamine and other amphetamines have been a frequent ingredient in diet pills over the years, starting in the 1950s and 60s. Many of these diet pills caused heart problems and other health complications, and meth-adjacent ingredients still make an appearance in these types of drugs in the 21st century. In 2010, a weight loss pill was pulled from the market after it was found to contain ephedrine. Love yourself and stay the hell away from diet pills, folks. Fact 26. One of the worst imaginable outcomes of meth use is an overdose. Warning signs of an acute meth overdose include sudden dangerous spikes in body temperature and blood pressure, chest pain, confusion, anxiety, dilated pupils, rapid eye movement, vomiting, nausea, trouble breathing, and convulsions. Like with cocaine, it's difficult to determine the exact amount of meth that will trigger an acute overdose. The overdose threshold can be affected by a person's age, mass, metabolism, pre-existing health conditions, and the method by which they are ingesting the drug, whether swallowing, snorting, smoking, or injecting it. Fact 25. So let's say someone's trying to get off of meth once and for all. What does methamphetamine withdrawal look like? Well, the severity of the withdrawal symptoms depends on the person as well as how much meth they're using and for how long. The physical symptoms of withdrawal can include exhaustion, disturbed sleep patterns, dry mouth, headaches, anxiety, hallucinations, and muscle spasms. Because of the potential severity of these symptoms, medically supervised withdrawal is recommended in cases of heavy meth use. Fact 24. If meth is so bad for the body, why do people even do it? Taking meth floods the brain with dopamine, a neurotransmitter that plays a major role in emotions, bodily movement, and feelings of both pleasure and pain. In lab experiments that compared the effects of sex versus meth on dopamine levels in the brain, animals experienced a spike in dopamine during sex that went from 100 to 200 units. Cocaine caused a spike to 350 units. Meth cranked things all the way up to 1,250 units. There is no natural way to get that kind of dopamine spike that meth can create. This makes it incredibly addictive and has consequences for the way the brain can experience pleasure overall. Fact 23. Long-term use of meth impacts the ability of the brain to naturally produce dopamine. Chronic meth users have lower levels of dopamine receptors than those who abstain from it. So when meth users try to get clean, their ability to feel pleasure is decreased, and they often plunge into depression, sending them straight back to the only drug that can make them feel normal. Eventually, the brain is able to regain its ability to generate dopamine, but it takes time, and the amount of time is different for every person. But that's not the only terrifying long-term effect of meth. Fact 22. Prolonged meth use can also trigger hallucinations and psychosis. One of the most common and distressing hallucinations is the tactile or physical sensation hallucination of bugs crawling across or under the skin. This is often referred to as meth bugs, ice mites, meth mites, and crank bugs. It can lead to aggressive picking and scratching of the skin, leaving open wounds that can become infected or even lead to deadly sepsis. Meth use also suppresses the immune system, making the likelihood of infection or related conditions all that much higher. All in all, these hallucinations are painful and terrifying for both the person experiencing them and anyone trying to care for them. Fact 21. Meth isn't just dangerous to the brain and body, it's also dangerous to the environment. You've heard of meth labs. You probably also heard about meth lab explosions. The two go hand in hand. Turns out when you combine dangerous substances, flammable chemical reactions, and corner-cutting safety procedures, the results, well, can blow up in your face. Because meth cooking requires a multitude of complicated chemical reactions, it's easy for something to go wrong when handled by untrained hands. And the fact that the chemicals involved are extremely volatile, such as acetone, ammonia, and other solvents, and the fact that there is usually an open flame around, it's easy to see how explosions happen. Even a small spark or static electricity could set off an explosion. Top it all off with the secrecy surrounding meth labs, making them even less safe and more likely to be placed in rural areas where fires can spread quickly and you got yourself a disaster on your hands. Meth lab explosions are characterized by a quick eruption of flames and a shockwave likely to destroy the structure and send scraps of metal flying. From there, the fire can spread and the toxic chemicals can seep into the soil and the nearby water. Nobody wants a bunch of cranked up squirrels running around. Just kidding, it wouldn't actually get the squirrels high, it would just poison them. Fact 20. Not all meth labs are in trailers and in sheds in the middle of nowhere. Some of them are sitting on top of premium real estate. Take, for example, the $1.5 million meth house spotted for sale on Zillow in San Jose. The house went on the market in October 2023 after its occupant was arrested for stockpiling weapons and manufacturing meth on the premises. But hey, once you get past the disused meth lab, it's a pretty charming little place. Good starter home. Fact 19. Scientific advancement requires a lot of commitment and willingness to do new things. One of those new things is giving meth to pond snails, at least if you're Barbara Song from Washington State University, whose 2010 experiment involved dosing those water-dwelling snails with meth. The study found that the drug stimulated learning and memory, offering a bit of insight into the nature of drug effects on the brain. The use of crystal meth in the snails influenced the formation of vivid memories and allowed them to retain information for longer. And that sounds pretty good. But don't start taking meth to improve your memory. First of all, you're not a snail, probably. And second of all, the creation of these vivid memories makes meth users more likely to relapse when they're surrounded by sensory input that triggers memories linked to their drug use. They learned all that from getting snails super high. Fact 18. Oh, by the way, that's not the only experiment that involved giving meth to an animal to see what happens. Taser International funded a study also in 2010, what was in the water that year, to determine the effects of tasers on targets who were high off their faces on methamphetamine. So how did they measure that? By pumping a bunch of sheep full of meth and zapping them with tasers, of course. Some of the smaller sheep, less than 70 pounds, experienced heart-related complications from the combination of tasers and meth, but none of the sheep experienced fatal complications. So it turns out that combining tasers with meth probably won't kill somebody, but we still wouldn't want to test that on our own. Fact 17. North Korea isn't the first place that comes to mind when you think of the meth trade, but over the years the country has become dominated by the amphetamine trade. While it is still illegal there, the stigma against the drug has faded over time, and officials are more than happy to look the other way when bribed by meth manufacturers. According to Andrei Lankov, a North Korean expert at Kookmin University in South Korea, meth, until recently, has been largely seen inside North Korea as a kind of very powerful energy drug, something like Red Bull amplified. It was even a nationally sanctioned practice for a while, according to Business Insider. From the 1990s to the 2000s, the country made its own meth and trafficked it through diplomatic channels to raise money. As the 2000s wore on and the official state manufacturing slowed, private and independent meth manufacturers began to pop up. In 2010, China seized $60 million worth of drugs, including meth, being trafficked from North Korea. Fact 16. Earlier, we talked about the difficulties of going through meth withdrawal. If you're going through withdrawal yourself, it's important to seek out support, medical and otherwise. But what if you're the person offering that support? Experts agree that taking these steps can allow you to help out a loved one going through withdrawal from methamphetamines. Make sure they sleep a lot. Make sure they stay hydrated. Give them healthy foods. Remind them that their brain and body both need time to heal. Acknowledging that the process is hard and painful and that it takes courage. And generally uplifting them in their efforts to quit abusing the drug. Helping a loved one through withdrawals can make you feel powerless, but you can do a lot just by being there. Now that was kind of heavy, so let's talk about something weird. Fact 15. Meth smuggling is nothing new. So how about smuggling meth and sharks? A Louisiana man was arrested in August 2022 in the Gulf of Mexico when authorities determined that he had too many sharks on board. Oh, and he had a bunch of crystal meth too. It was bull shark fishing season and he had more than the legal limit of sharks, limited to just one per vessel. And as it turns out, the legal limit for meth is absolutely no meth at all, so he was over that as well. He wasn't smuggling the meth, he was just smoking it as far as anyone could tell, but still a crime. Don't smoke meth and drive boats, kids. And definitely don't do it with sharks, that's just an accident waiting to happen. Fact 14. Fish and meth just don't go together. In April 2024, U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers seized nearly 50 pounds of methamphetamine hidden in an ice chest full of dead fish. The driver was attempting to cross the border between the U.S. and Mexico when a scan spotted irregularities in his ice chest. Inside the ice chest, they found a bunch of dead fish and 47 pounds of meth. Stop traveling with meth and fish, folks. Fact 13. Now let's talk about some myths. Some messy meth misinformation you don't want to miss. Hey, new sobriety test just dropped. Say that 5 times fast to prove you're not on meth. Anyway, one popular myth is that using meth once immediately results in addiction. That is untrue. The fact of the matter is that addiction develops from repeated use. Research suggests that it can take 2 to 5 years for meth use to develop into addiction. Though take that with a grain of salt because it does vary from person to person, and it works differently for smoking versus injection. Fact 12. Another meth myth is that the average length of time from first use of meth to death by meth is 5 years. There's no data to suggest the veracity of that claim. For example, methamphetamine users in Missouri entering treatment for the first time have been using meth for nearly 10 years on average. So as long as someone is still breathing, it's never too late for them to seek treatment for meth abuse. Fact 11. Speaking of which, another often repeated myth is that meth addiction is not treatable. Clinical studies have shown that this is completely untrue. In fact, treatment for meth abuse has similar outcomes to treatment for abuse of other drugs, such as cocaine. The two groups do not differ in treatment adherence, clinic attendance, drug-free urine tests, or successful completion of rehab programs. Of course, longer periods of treatment correlate to more success. For example, meth users who undergo treatment for at least 4 months have almost double the rate of success in avoiding relapse. Fact 10. Another myth about meth is that it causes holes in your brain. While meth undoubtedly has a negative impact on brain function when it's being used, and it can cause damage to nerve cells due to neurotoxic properties, these effects are not permanent. Dark areas visible on brain scans are not holes, but rather they're areas of low or no function. Over time, this damaged tissue is able to repair itself as long as there is no further use. Some of the damage can be permanent, but there are no holes. And again, as long as someone is still breathing, it's never too late to make a change. Fact 9. It can be dangerous to combine meth with prescription drugs. Some of the most dangerous drugs to combine with meth are antidepressants. When mixed with meth, antidepressants can cause serotonin syndrome, an excessive release of serotonin that leads to confusion, rapid heart rate, high blood pressure, seizures, and even death. It can also increase the risks of heart attacks and can worsen the mental health conditions that the antidepressants are being used for. Fact 8. Another extremely dangerous type of prescription drug to mix with meth is opioids. Combining meth with opioids can lead to severe respiratory depression, where the breathing slows to a dangerous rate. The stimulant effects of the meth can cause the sedative effects of opioids to go unnoticed, resulting in accidental overdose of one or the other. Finally, consuming both puts a tremendous strain on the cardiovascular system, and it can lead to a stroke or heart attack. When it comes to medications, meth does not play well with others. Fact 7. We've referenced the purity of meth a few times in this video, but what does impure meth have in it? What's it being cut with? Common additives, all of which are toxic to consume, include lithium metal, hydrochloric acid, iodine, sulfuric acid, and red phosphorus. Then, like many other drugs today, meth can also be cut with fentanyl. Fact 6. It's good to be concerned about what you're putting into your body. However, it's probably best not to call the police and then ask them to test your meth for you. That's what a Florida man, who else, did in 2022. When he suspected he had been sold bath salts instead of meth, he decided rather than talk it out with his dealer, he called the cops and asked them for their expert opinion. It did not end well for him. Fact 5. One word that's often associated with meth is tweaker or tweaking, but what does that mean? According to the National Library of Medicine, tweaking refers to the state of methamphetamine misuse, wherein the drug user becomes paranoid and irritable due to a lack of sleep. At this point, they have usually gone without sleep for somewhere between 3 and 15 days. During this stage, the person is unable to get as high as they usually do and becomes frustrated by the need to up their dosage. They can become violent, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous to others or themselves. This particular stage can be identified by rapid eye movement, up to 10 times faster than normal, a quivering voice, and jerky movements. Fact 4. Florida man and meth seem to go together like peanut butter and jelly. Another story saw a Florida man hiding meth in, well, let's just say his rear, after a hit-and-run car crash. The driver hit a paraplegic bicyclist hand-pedaling on the road and immediately fled the scene. But karma was swift and the authorities tracked the man down and found him with meth between his cheeks, not the ones on his face. Fact 3. Meth first exploded in popularity as an illegal drug in the 1980s, but it is still very much in style in certain parts of the United States. According to the Pew Research Center, from 2015 to 2019, arrests for meth possession increased by 59%, and self-reported possession of meth increased by 22%. Fact 2. If you or someone you know is struggling with meth abuse, there are resources available. The National Institute on Drug Abuse recommends multiple potential courses of action, including the Matrix model, a 16-week behavioral treatment that combines therapy, family education, and counseling with traditional 12-step support. There are also contingency management interventions, which use positive reinforcement to assist with abstinence from drugs. Look into your local resources as well, as there are lots of people who want to help. Fact 1. Let's take things out on a lighter note. Say you're designing an awareness campaign for the issue of meth abuse in your area. Say you have to come up with a catchy slogan, something that gets people thinking about the meth crisis and how we're all in it together when it comes to solving it. The South Dakota government went with the well-intentioned but disastrous "Meth, we're on it." South Dakota has indeed been seeing a troubling uptick in meth usage, with twice as many teenagers using it in the state than the national average. However, we're not so sure this campaign really gets the message across, unless they're trying to imply that the only way to have enough energy to stop meth is to start smoking it too. If you can't beat 'em, join 'em. Note, we here at the Infographics Show do not, under any circumstances, endorse joining them. Now check out what happens to your body if you do meth, or watch this instead.